agenda, but Ken, did you want to go ahead and?
Yes. Yeah. So go ahead and post the agenda. I just wanted to start off the
Okay.
meeting with kind of a recap of what the county board approved, and in their resolution, the basic parts of it is that we've kind of taken the project and broke it up into pieces, as you might recall from the last meeting. We've got the jail itself, the jail proper, which we've been working on, and we've got the schematic design for that, and we'll be talking more in detail about that as we go forward. We also have a couple other parts, excuse me, that play into that, which is the reuse of the existing jail, the Winona PD's needs, and then the integration of the facility, not just the building, but programs and so forth with the existing LEC. And then that also encompasses looking at solutions to our concerns about transporting juveniles. And that means looking if there's any way in that particular building and plant that we could accommodate a safe place for juveniles for that temporary period where rather than sending them out of town. So those are kind of the general themes that we need to look at. And in order to do that, right now we have a contract with Klein McCarthy and with Market and Johnson to move forward on the jail design and construction. So we move from the schematic stage to the next stages of that project. And of course, in that, we'll be defining more in detail the use of the spaces and so forth. And then also the integration with the existing facility, we need to work that through with Klein McCarthy and what that will take and what part of that is under the existing agreement and then what part may be outside that agreement. And then as far as the reuse goes and the impact on the LEC that isn't directly related to the jail, but is related to the expansion of the Winona PD or the juvenile holding or safe space, whatever you want to call it. And we need to talk to the architect about possibly getting some proposal back to help guide us through that process of evaluating the facility and determining what possible options there might be. So that there's a lot there for the jail committee to do. It's not all in the same timeline. Of course, the first priority is to build the jail that the county board has directed us to do. And so that'll be the focus, but we'll need to deal with these other ancillary issues as we move along. And then in addition to that, we have some related kind of campus issues that are part of the JDCC's kind of overall purview, which is making sure that all this fits together with parking and all those kind of things. So anyway, there's a lot there. Today's agenda is specifically kind of focuses on the really item C and D are more focused on the actual jail facility, but we will talk a little bit about the juvenile housing and the LEC on the agenda. So I'll let Danielle take it from there, and we'll start to move forward.
All right, thank you, Ken. Yeah, I think that.
Danielle?
Yep.
Marcia here.
Yep.
I'm in a car traveling, but I'm the passenger. So if you hear some background noise, but I'll mute as I can. Question: When we're talking about the jail, is there going to be a separate door that we go into this new facility, or are we tying in to the existing? I know we need to use the tunnel, and I know there's moving pieces, but we didn't authorize any remodeling. So can you explain that just a little bit?
Marcia, in our discussion about the jail that was part of the presentation of the county board, there was I want to call it, part of it is we have to integrate it with the existing facility, so that in terms of like the dispatch and some of those other things where mechanicals and so forth, we have to make sure that all kind of works together. As far as the actual layout of you know, where we're going to enter and all that kind of thing. I think, you know, Danielle can talk, you know, to the schematic design. Of course, a lot of that is up for consideration. So that's exactly what I was talking about. We have a portion that impacts the existing LEC to the extent that you can build the jail and you need part connections to the LEC, like the tunnel, the dispatch, you know, some of those kind of things, mechanicals. But it's not about the complete reuse of the LEC or the jail.
Okay.
So it's got tentacles into the LEC, but it's not a complete, you know, revamping of the LEC. But that is something we have to talk about, because that's going to be impacted by the whatever Winona PD needs, you know, that discussion, and it's also going to be impacted by the what we need to do with possibly with juveniles, which is a longer, more involved discussion, and then also how we want to, you know, reuse the existing facility. For instance, we have, you know, sally ports and things that they're not gonna be needed as a sally port necessarily, but they might be able to be used for storage of maintenance equipment, let's say, you know, something that might benefit ourselves somewhere else on the plan. So, you know, it's not a black and white kind of thing, at least in my opinion.
Okay, yes, it's very gray in my opinion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention that the new construction, the new building, although it's connected to the tunnel, there are a couple of program items that weren't able to fit within the footprint of the new construction. So those items were public visitation and dispatch, which ties into the control of the doors in the jail. So those are the two items that would need to be remodeled within the existing facility in order for the new construction of the jail to be completed.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, we did provide items A and B on the agenda to get the conversation started about the procedures for those topics. The first, of course, is the juvenile housing area. We've talked about this in a few of our other options. I know that Steve has been in discussions with DOC in terms of what ideas they might have to bring to the table. But what we'd like to do is have the county discuss what their goals are and identify a timeline and how we can be of assistance in that study of what the juvenile housing component could be. And Ken, like you mentioned, the primary or the focus will certainly be on the jail construction and getting that designed and moving forward so we can stay on track to hopefully get in the ground this fall. But we're curious to know from the county side how the juvenile component might affect the jail design and construction. And I know you probably don't have all the answers today, but I'd like to really talk through what is the procedure and what do you guys envision that this piece of the puzzle in terms of how it affects the jail.
Well, Steve has been in contact with DOC. We had a meeting with the Department of Corrections back before New Year's, and we talked about different things. And I think a lot of people had assumed, or that, well, we need some kind of a secure, and actually that's what we've been kind of working off of, that it would be some kind of secure facility. You have all these rules and regulations and so forth. And the DOC actually indicated that we could do a non-secure facility, which seems counterintuitive to what we were talking about. But basically, under the DOC's authority, they can do a non-secure residential facility for those juveniles that are, whether they're CHIPS cases, which we can't hold now, or whether they're remanded there by the judge or something for that 8-day period. So, and then something like that would look much different than what we've been talking about, or what people I think assume we're looking at. the concept is more in line with kind of a college dorm, if you want to take it from that perspective, where you have multiple rooms and then you have kind of a supervised area that they all connect to. So it's a lot like the annex is now, except with more privacy, and it's basically just a safe environment that juveniles can be in to have and get programming, whether it's educational resources, schooling. The Winona Area School District has indicated they can provide schooling to those people. You have certain components, but you have a lot less regulation when it comes to that kind of an area. And of course, the impact on juveniles is much less because it's basically a safe, comfortable environment. And in those kind of cases, sometimes a couple days, away from whatever environment they were in is all the judge needs to have them in, or in CHIPS cases. So there's a lot of research we have to do from the social services side of that and from the DOC side of that. But from an architectural standpoint, the DOC felt that the current annex area would be able to be remodeled and be used for that. In order for the county to decide whether that makes sense, there's a lot of moving parts. You got to decide whether that makes sense for the actual, situation we have with these juveniles, but you also have to decide whether that's going to make sense from a cost-effective standpoint. We did learn some additional things about juvenile holding in the area and the number of resources available for us to transport juveniles to is diminishing, even beyond the Olmsted option where Olmsted closed their facility. So this is becoming more and more important to the Winona area. Houston County had indicated, they were at the meeting, they indicated that they would be interested in providing, having juveniles to have a place to go to. We're not talking about a big facility. You're talking about maybe 6 beds, 6 rooms, so to speak, maybe 8 tops, so that you can deal, you can house both juveniles, females and males. So it's something that we need to work on. So I would suggest maybe we need a little subcommittee or something, of this group to kind of work with the architect to look at possible options, and also to bring in, I know there's going to be some community discussions, and to have input, to take whatever input occurs at that level, to kind of help inform any recommendations that we might do. So it's a very complicated situation, and it has kind of a longer timeline, I would suspect. So, but we do probably need to break something off the JDCC. It really wouldn't be driven by the architect, but we would need you guys as resources to help us look at costs. Same with Market and Johnson. So we'll probably have to establish some kind of a contractual addendum for that work, and may ask you for some kind of proposal in that area. And we need to kind of sit down and talk about that separately.
Okay.
The LEC revisions or renovations along the same lines, a little less complicated,
Yeah.
really have to do with a couple things. One would be what impact the jail proper, let's say, has on the facility. What, if any, changes that or expansion that the Winona PD would want to suggest or possibly be involved in, and then any reuse that the county would indicate would make sense. So one example, for instance, that we've been looking at, and again, these are all just ideas. I mean, they're concepts and ideas that haven't been vetted yet, but things like, for instance, we have a maintenance facility that is larger and disjointed. It's actually 3 separate buildings that we use to store some basic maintenance equipment for maintaining, clearing snow from the sidewalks, doing that kind of thing. In talking to the maintenance, our maintenance people, they indicate we only need about 2,500 square feet, maybe 3,000 square feet for that kind of equipment. It would be possible, for instance, maybe to reuse some of the Sally Port area of the existing LEC for that purpose. That would allow us to tear down the current maintenance building and add parking to the county office building, which is something that we could use down the road. So there's some things like that we could explore. I'm sure that the sheriff has a few needs in their building, and I know this is what Commissioner Ward was talking about, and obviously there's a price tag with those kind of things if you start remodeling. but we can take a look at it, and that's something that was on the resolution to explore. Obviously, nothing's been approved, but we would want to look at then what are the needs of the sheriff's department in terms of the existing building as we kind of change it a little bit with the impact of the jail. So I think those two things are kind of separate for the JDCC, and we'll have to create maybe a subcommittee on each of those so that we can get some ideas to bring back to the full committee here.
Okay. I think everything you described in the LEC makes sense. I was curious to know from a mechanical and electrical standpoint if the county would be interested in having our engineers look at the existing systems. I know that was a question early on of how much would be replaced if the existing building was to be reused. And at that time, the intent would be to upgrade those systems as a result of if the jail was reusing that existing space. But because now that the jail is a separate building, those systems will be in the new building, and the existing systems, I assume, would need to be looked at and thinking about deferred maintenance. And would that be something the county would be interested in exploring it in addition to the programming?
Yeah, we're going to need to do that. Yeah. There's things like, and Steve just sent me a note, but we talked about before things like the generator, and we don't. I think that the electrical system, from what I understand, is maxed out. And those kind of things cause us problems, not just regardless of the jail. There are things in the existing facility that need to be addressed, the deferred maintenance over there and that kind of thing. So yeah, so we do need to take a real good look at the building we have, and before you look at reusing it for anything, you need to know what your limitations are.
And remember, this is Marcia, remember, the board only has obligated approximately a $20 million price tag. All these things that we're talking about, if they fall within that, maybe, but I don't think they're going to.
No,
so
they yeah, Marcia. No, I can tell you up front, Marcia, that what we're talking about is the jail is that I think Mark and Johnson came up with 19 or 20 million when you add on the FF&E and all that. But the reuse of the existing facility, other than the parts that connect directly to the jail, that's all separate. And the board has not approved any money for that, but what they did approve was to have us explore it and look at options. So that's what we're doing. You do have to do a little work to explore these things. So we have to have some resources from the architect and Mark and Johnson and, the engineers and that kind of thing. So there's a cost to that, but the bigger cost, the actually, reusing the facility, is something that the board has not approved, and that would be a decision they would make later based on whatever recommendations the committee came up with. So yeah, you're absolutely correct, and I think everybody realizes that when we split out the different parts, we knew that would be a discussion down the road, and that's up to the county board. So
okay. So then it sounds like, Ken, then you'll be reaching out to the folks that need to be on those subcommittee meetings and talk offline about. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. So really, you have kind of the JDCC is kind of the umbrella, and then you've got these areas, and now where we originally kind of focused on just the jail. We've divided it now into subparts. So we have the jail, let's say juvenile housing, and then the LEC renovations, and then I would throw in there the Winona PD needs as part of that renovation. But in those areas we can explore, and we'll take whatever time it takes to explore them, and try to set up the new jail in a way that doesn't preclude doing those things, but doesn't add a lot of extra cost if so kind of set the table for the future. And then if the board wants to do it, that's fine. If they don't, we won't be out with we'll be fine. So we'll just go
Sure.
with that kind of a concept, I think, from dealing with these issues.
Ken, are you thinking that in the LEC exploration that we need to split off the PD part of it? Is there any cost sharing or grant monies or something that we'd need to break these things out into a little bit more detailed tracking?
Well, yeah, I think as we explore those, give you an example. Well, actually, you're right. On the Winona PD, for instance, we need to sit down with Winona. We need to look at what areas of the building would be available. Let's say the existing jail. We need to work with our own sheriff's department to see if there's any need that has to be addressed there with them, and then we'll have to come up with whatever that cost is. Winona PD would be expected to participate in that cost to the extent that they have their need is met. The juvenile side, at least my suggestion would be is that we work on that like we kind of did the original estimates, but we do it on this newer concept if that's what the group thinks, the people that deal with juveniles. And then we put it in the state bonding plan, not this year because there isn't one this year, but next year. So we'd be wanting to put together, kind of some kind of rough design and costs to put into that, that program to see if we can get funding from the state. It also would allow the county board to decide whether, it's cost effective to do it, even if the state didn't participate. So, yeah, so we're going to have to do some work to get to those points where we can give the board, some options on what they might do or not do. But I think in both situations, one situation, the Winona PD would be asked to participate, and in the juvenile situation, I think we should ask the state because the Southeast region, the Greater Minnesota region, doesn't have any resource like this, and even though it's a small one, 6 to 8 beds, something like that, it would be very useful for the surrounding counties, especially because we're hearing that there's going to be less and less opportunity to send kids anywhere close to our area, and that's just going to increase the cost over time. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we are going to look for other kinds of funding for this.
Okay, but and I know schedule's going to come up, but you don't see anything. You don't see these topics they can run at the same time as the jail design, but you don't see these slowing down the jail design and the production of that. Get that done, get it issued out, and then these others just fall where they need to fall as the board approves them.
Exactly, and as we can, come to a point where we can give something to the board to look at. Yeah. So they'll take. Okay. I'm sure they'll take significantly longer, and than the timeline for building the jail, or at least breaking ground and moving forward with the jail. Yeah. They're only tied together in the sense that you guys have to figure out. The new jail has some impact on the LEC, and we have to make sure we do it in a way that it doesn't preclude other things down the road.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can factor some flex things in or multiple ways of solving things within the jail design. I just wanted to make sure that I know Tyler had talked with Market and Johnson about the schedule and where we're at in that there really isn't much room to slip.
I think
any room at all to be able to get started on the jail construction yet this year. Yeah,
I think we're good. Move like I said, it's a separate part, not a separate part, but it's a separate track with its own timeline and only intermingles based on those things we talked about. One thing to give an example is with the DOC, they indicated if you're going to do some kind of a juvenile safe area, that you need to provide some recreation space, right? And now you can meet the recreation needs in a couple different ways. You could actually transport them to something where they could recreate, which is more costly and obviously difficult. Or there actually have been situations where counties have used the same rec facilities as the jail, but you have to have them, it's complicated because you have to, you can't have the kids in a secure space. So it has to be a non-secure space when the kids are there and a secure space in the perimeter of when the inmates are there. So it's complicated, but it can be done. So the question would be, could, you know, right now we show the rec area, for instance, kind of far away from the LEC, and it's set up completely independent, you know, it's secure space, you know, all that kind of stuff. There might be an opportunity, and Steve would know more about this, but an opportunity to move that in a position that would allow us to, in the future, use it as rec space if you did a juvenile, you know, facility. So it's kind of, those kind of things might have some discussion, but they shouldn't slow down the timeline, where we don't want them to slow down the timeline.
Okay.
Yeah, appreciate that clarification. The next topic is schedule, and we had discussed issuing schematic design documents at the end of February. And Market and Johnson has indicated it'll take them approximately 2 to 3 weeks to revise the cost estimate. So we're looking at receiving that from them on or around March 18th. And so a question for the county as far as the procedure for presenting those cost updates to the board. I think I realize now that the next board meeting after March 18th, although it'd be March 25th, I don't think there would be time enough to get that information in the board packet. And so looking at the next board meeting that's regularly scheduled, that's April 13th. So we were curious to know a couple things. If it's a possibility to schedule a special session to present the schematic design package to the board. And then if not, we had indicated in our schedule that we would proceed with the next phase in order for us to move forward with getting construction documents issued in July. So Ken, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Danielle, I think the first meeting in April is fine, the 13th. My question is, what are you going to actually present at that meeting?
So that's actually the next topic, which would be the deliverables for schematic design. Our contract indicates that we'll do initial floor plans, we'll present the preliminary site plan. We will also have exterior elevations or model images showing the board what the building looks like. And then there'll also be narratives from the engineers. Of course, we wouldn't pour through those, but it would give Market and Johnson the information that they would need. And then, of course, the cost estimate to give an update of what the costs are associated with the project at that time.
I think this is really a question for Market and Johnson, but when would we get the guaranteed maximum price?
It'll all determine on how much detail, you know, is on this one. I mean, the final number really will come once we have the final bid documents and we actually go out and get subcontract bids. That'll be the last hard number when we get the construction, or I say bid documents in July and go out to bid.
So this, at this point, on the 13th, basically what we would call like the engineer's estimate, right? So that would be what you're estimating before you actually bid the trade, the trades.
Correct. Yeah. I'd be doing a much more detailed estimate than what I'd have been doing. The last few budgets I've been doing is a lot of square foot dollars.
Okay.
Now with actual floor plans, I can start putting, quantities to concrete, masonry, send things out to subcontractors for budget numbers, get more detail than what I did the very first preliminary budget.
Well, at this point, let's assume that that presentation would take place then, Danielle and Tyler, at the 13th, on the 13th board meeting.
Ken, your question about price. We haven't even discussed, are you going to do these pre-made cells that you buy and haul in on trucks and plop down? Are you doing concrete block? And
The current plan is for stainless steel cells.
Okay. All right. I hadn't heard that definitively.
Yeah. And I do want to have some discussion with the architects about, and this is really something I haven't really need to talk to Steve about, but whether the current layout was a simple, 50, I think it was 56 cells or whatever in a modular design or whatever. We have some ability to do a few different things within that layout, and so that may happen. But right now, the working schematic is stainless steel cells. Getting back to the presentation, what Marcia mentioned about the costs and stuff. So at the 13th, you would give us all this information that's in item D, and you would give us a pretty detailed estimate of what you think the project is going to cost when you go out to bid. Then the next section is the next time that the board would get it would be the actual guaranteed maximum price. Is that right, Tyler?
I would say there'd probably be one more following budget.
Okay.
I would say we'd have this budget, the schematic one, and then we'd get even a little bit further into detail of the plans, probably even more in depth of, yep, this flooring may be going here, get more finishes.
Okay.
Then we'd do the same process again, do the full budget. I don't know exactly when we'd be there. I don't know, maybe May, probably somewhere around that time if we're doing one here in February, maybe even April, end of April into May. And then following that, we would have the final bid document that would come out and get hard bids, send the notice out to all the subcontractors and post in the paper and do all that legal stuff with it. Yep.
So Danielle, on the 13th, would after that, when the board sees that plan, is there any possibility, let's say for instance the elevations, they want to tweak them or something, or what? I know there'd be small changes, but is there any chance for any kind of adjustments after that?
Yeah, I think there would be opportunities for small adjustments. I think our next, a few topics down is to talk about when we'll meet again with this committee. Because I think this committee would have an opportunity to see where we're at with the design and show you guys the preliminary exterior design. What I think we'd want to make certain that we limit some of those tweaks to not wholesale changes. For example, construction systems. I think we can certainly modify colors of brick or colors of metal panel, or make
some of the aesthetics. Yeah, so some of the aesthetic things can be done. Yeah, okay. And okay. I just want an idea for everybody to understand, what they're getting at that point and what the board will be asked to sign off on going forward.
Right.
And that eventually Go ahead.
Our goal as the design team is to, once we've completed schematic design, that's when we will ask our engineers to move forward with their layouts in terms of where all the light fixtures are going, where all of the air handling units will go. And so we would love to say we're locking into a floor plan at the end of schematic design. Of course, there's going to be little tweaks here and there where electrical closet needs to be enlarged, or we need to tuck in shaft enclosures, for example, for ductwork, but those things occur in that design development stage.
Okay.
But yeah, that's really our goal for schematic design, is to let the engineers loose on their engineering work.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can.
So Ken, on looking at that
With
schedule.
Market and Johnson. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to expand on that between what Danielle was just mentioning and what Tyler was talking about. Typically in this whole construction process, there's 4 main stages. You got the conceptual design. That's basically what we're getting over right now, and getting into the second part, schematic design. That's where we do another budget update based on the schematic documents. From there, as Danielle talked about, you're locking in the footprint at that point, making sure it's about the right size and about the right budget where it needs to be. Then you refine it from there, and you get into the third stage, into DD, design development. That is the third budget update. It's another budget update. We reach out to more subcontractors, more input. We get more detailed on the estimate at the DD standpoint. Then the final one is CD, construction documents. That's where you get into 100%. All the details are there. Everything's signed off. That's where we go out for public bids, multiple bids on every work category. And that's the final stage at CD. That's where the GMP is established after that, because there's basically zero risk because we have lots of quotes, lots of options to choose from of as far as who's doing the work from all the apparent low bidders. So
Great.
I'm sorry. I was trying to write those 4 phases down. Could you repeat that? Just the
Sure.
phases.
Yep. Conceptual design,
Okay.
schematic design, design development, and then construction documents.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So Ken, I've got a question procedurally. We're planning on taking we complete the schematic design, Market & Johnson prices that, and then we come in and update the board. And then we're drawing design development, they price that, we bring that back into the board, and we do the same thing for construction documents. My question is, with the compacted schedule and hitting everything, I want to make sure procedurally what approvals are needed. And so do we need to do schematic design and then stop until the board sees the price and authorizes us to move into the next phase, or do we just seamlessly keep moving? That's a question. That starting and stopping is the question of, we don't have that built into the schedule. We really were figuring, okay, we give them the schematic design set, but we keep working on the next phase while they're pricing the previous.
Yeah, the board authorized the general, the size of the facility, I guess, which has a price or estimated right now, and just an estimated based on the schematic design. So we're not going back necessarily and asking for approval of that price estimate because it's within, it's not, it doesn't mean, that doesn't mean anything. It's just an estimate at that time. So basically we're just saying, okay, here's the newest, more detailed, design, and here's the attached estimate. Okay. So until we get to the guaranteed maximum price, we don't need the board to approve the cost. So, but we do want to keep them informed and to be able to give them enough information so they understand the progress of the thing. And so that's why we need to meet on April 13th, and we need to meet on whatever the next one is, after that. So we can fit those to your schedule. It's kind of basically updating the board so that they have an input to the process a little bit in terms of the, so they're constantly being involved in the process, but we're not every time going back and asking them for an approval of the price estimate. So we need to continue to work, as you've indicated, overlapping the schedules.
Okay. Does the committee just give us the, hey, schematic design looks good, give that to Market & Johnson, continue on? Do we need any approvals on that, or do we just seamlessly keep working within the schedule?
No, we're going to have to keep working within the schedule. But like I said, we want to make sure that we're bringing these things to the board as they are available.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, no, we need to, for instance, we have to make some feedback in order to get you to the next step. So yeah, we're going to have to continue to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we get that kind of worked into the schedule if there's starts and stops, or it just flows. Okay.
No, it's got to flow, because otherwise we'll never make the timeline, to get it started before the winter, and then we'll be into, special conditions and, all that kind of stuff. And it'll raise the price on it. So we need to balance that fact with the timeline. But the key to that is keeping the board number one, keeping the committee and the board members that are on the committee informed, but then also keeping the board informed. So.
Okay. Yeah, because that'll help us as we've got a design schedule, but that'll help Mark and Johnson put together a construction schedule so they know when they're pricing it, when it's bidding. And I just wanted to make sure we're still trying to hold to this year and not ending up, bidding this thing in December or January a year from now and then starting it next year.
Well, and that would be problematic for. Yeah, that would be problematic for the reasons I mentioned, and also problematic because the DOC will probably have shut us down by then. So yeah,
that gets into your sunset problems. Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
Ken, Ken,
Yeah, Marcia.
probably more comment.
Go ahead. You're cutting
for
out
your
a little bit.
business side. Okay, the public is somewhat disenfranchised with this whole process. So we need to come up with a way to either have a board update at each meeting or some kind of weekly memo that's on a public document that people can see.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. There's two parts. That's one of the things I was saying is that we want to make sure that, that we're getting the information to the board at the intervals that we need to. But there's other parts to this, the LEC renovations, the juvenile section, what we're doing for the actual programming, not the programming like the architects talked about, but the actual program. So, jail social worker, jail intake worker, all that stuff's going to be part of that discussion that we're heading toward with, the community and being able to get input from the community on those kind of things. So the use of, kind of the services that are available, and also that whole thing kind of wraps into that discussion that the board is kind of, moving us toward. Right. Initially, they asked the department heads to provide feedback on, what we might do to include and listen to the community to get them involved in the process. And so we're going to do that, and then we'll continue to work with the board to figure out how to, how that's going to happen and how it's going to unfold, and that'll include what you're talking about. Because, so really, this part that we're talking about right now is the actual, design and construction of the jail, and that we do have to have, make sure we're transparent. One of the things that we're doing right now is obviously this is a public meeting, which is kind of unusual for a construction process, but it's fine. I think it's great. It allows people to have access. But as we go forward with the board, there's going to be discussions about the facility somewhat, but the board has made a decision on what that will include. But I think the important part, the part the community wants to know about, is what are we doing about mental health? What are we doing about substance abuse? What are we doing about those kind of things? And then of course and then the other part of that is how to keep people from ever getting to jail. Which is kind of the main crux to that discussion. So it's all intertwined, and it makes it complicated. But we want to keep the design and construction people on track for that piece of it, and so that's what we're talking about right now. So I don't know if that were kind of roundabout way to answer your question, but it is complicated.
Well, Ken, we also have the meeting minutes from this meeting and any attachments that we have for the committee. Those certainly can be forwarded and shared to the board as you see fit, or they. Again,
all of that.
I don't know about having them log on or watch that video because it's been recorded, so they can certainly watch that. They'd be getting updates every month.
Oh yeah, that's all available on our website actually, and so that's available. But the community discussion is around whether we should build a jail or not. And this is really a replacement jail. I mean, I think there's some misunderstanding that this isn't an expansion of the jail. It's actually replacing the existing facility. But there's a big discussion about incarceration at all, and so this is a project we need to move forward with because we got the direction from the board, but there's a lot more to it. And that's why I'm trying to, we've been focusing this JDCC committee on basically building the jail. But that committee is much more. It includes this renovation. It includes, the juvenile question, and whether those things happen or not, we don't know yet. But it's our job to kind of bring those into the mix. But really with the architect at Markin and Johnson, we're focusing on just building the jail. So you guys are kind of caught in the bigger scheme of things, you know, that we're working with. But so that's why we need to focus you guys on this process, and then let us take care of and work with the board and the public on the rest of it.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so getting into the next steps, we have currently one subcommittee meeting set up for next week on the 14th. So we're going to be meeting with Steve and his staff and really take a look at the housing and the intake plans. And like you mentioned, Ken, there's some opportunities for selecting different units for a softer mental health unit. So those are the topics that we'll be discussing with that group. And then each week after that, we'll start to get into the rest of the floor plan. So we're going to meet the week of January 18th to talk about the medical areas, the exam rooms, the classrooms, looking into the layouts for the laundry room area, and then of course the offices that are associated with the jail function. And then the following week, the hope is that we're getting closer to that floor plan. We're going to be able to reach back and talk with DOC about the units and complying with their guidelines, and then start to talk with the mechanical team and get their questions answered with your maintenance staff, and start to talk about mechanical penthouses and rooftop units and all of those types of items. But I just wanted to clarify that the subcommittee meetings were really just involving the user group. So we'll of course have meeting minutes. We will document our discussion and the decisions that are made at that point, and then send those out to the committee so that everyone knows what we've been discussing at that point.
Those meetings are not open to the public?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I think the idea when we started was that the committee meetings would be open to the public and would be more general in nature, larger scale topics. And then once we got into the walls of the secure perimeter due to safety concerns, limiting the public knowledge of the inner workings of the jail,
Right.
and then those would be held offline with the user group.
Okay, but are they still Zoom?
Yeah,
I'm asking if I can listen in.
Oh,
Can you send
Yeah.
me the link?
yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then the next topic is getting the next committee meeting on the calendar. So we had talked about meeting about once a month for you to get updates. And we've also discussed that the subcommittee group is going to focus in on the inside of the facility, and that the committee would be able to review the site plan and the exterior design. So I think by February, we should have the walls constructed and an idea of what the site plan would look like in 3 dimensions. So we'd be able to show you some massing and how this jail looks like next to the existing building and next to the existing courthouse. So I think looking at the calendar, we've got February, the week of, well, let's see, the week of February 8th. Let me check my calendar here. Because what that would do would give the committee an opportunity to weigh in on the progress, the exterior design, the site design, and then 2 weeks after that is when we would formally issue the documents to Markin and Johnson to Price. So that would give us a couple weeks to react to the committee's input.
So the week of the 8th, we have a board meeting on the 8th, but so are we looking at maybe the 10th? Or, I'm sorry, we have a board meeting on the 9th, I'm sorry. And then,
9th?
so we looking like the
Okay.
11th maybe, or?
Yeah, I think the 11th works.
I'm good on 11th.
Yep.
Yeah, oh, yeah, but you also have a subcommittee meeting that day too. Oh, no, that's January, sorry, my fault.
Yeah. Does that work for everyone? February 11th at 9 a.m.?
It's good on my end.
We'll take that as a yes. Take
Steve?
everybody's silence as a yes.
Yep. Okay. That basically concludes, Scott, did you have anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Our questions regarding how the procedures would be, how the jail project would run in conjunction with those other two evaluations. So Ken, do you have any other questions for us?
Yeah, could you just sort of remind us, can you throw up the site plan that we have right now, the schematic plan that we
Yep.
agreed on?
Well, that was quick.
Yeah. So here, my cursor is on the existing courthouse,
Yeah,
and the tunnel connecting the existing law enforcement center and the courthouse, and then the gray areas are representing parking areas,
mm-hmm.
and then the color areas are representing the footprint of the building.
Yeah. Now I know Marcia can't see this, but they're the two parts
Oh,
in
yes.
the LE. Yeah, the two parts in the LEC. There's one. It's kind of hard to read, but the yellow one is that the public?
Mhm.
That's restrooms and visitation, and then the
Yep.
other's the dispatch. So those are the two areas you expect to impact. With the jail proper design.
Correct.
Okay. And then go back to the.
and the air.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna mention that although we have the area of the dispatch and master control area in pink,
Mhm.
this is identifying the area that we had discussed during the conceptual programming stage. Now, is that the right location? I think that's where we'll start to develop in this schematic design phase. Does it make more sense, for example, for that function to be located in this footprint, for example?
Mhm.
So I think that's where we'll have to get in with the subcommittee is where is the best
Right.
location for that, and what's the best, and also what are the other potential items for the existing jail?
Right.
So
Okay.
I
then-
think that we'll get into that.
Yeah. Can you zoom back out then? And then let's see
Yeah.
here. Okay. And Steve, did you have any thoughts after our meeting with the DOC on the configuration of the actual, cells? Remember we talked a little bit about something that was,
Softer.
well, yeah, I think they were more like, I won't call them barracks, but
Well, dormitory is typically what we usually.
dormitory.
But I'm just going to use the word softer because I think really with the remote modular, this modular style jail, if we get into something that's more specifically dormitory, we might be looking at something that's direct supervision that could impact the staffing.
Yeah, the staffing is an issue. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the whole idea is this is, I don't want to get into it big, but was to make sure that this design first was about staffing and keeping it reduced. And number two is about just having a lot of classification options. And then I did send out a text to Scott during today's meeting, just indicating to him that I did want to discuss it. And after this, we are going to get into a discussion about it. Just like,
What I was thinking is, because there's an impact on staffing, or maybe, if you kind of work out I'd call it like kind of an option, if it's an option and we say, okay, we can do this, but it might impact staffing a little bit or whatever, at least we have it as an idea, to put out there and then, see where it goes, I guess. But I'll let you kind of pursue that thought. Okay. And then the other one was,
you talked about staffing. The last thing the board heard was no more staff. You can do this with the current staff
right. The current design,
or
or
less.
The current layout is designed with the same staffing. The question was, do we want something that's not just those steel cells for like minimum security? You know, but Steve's indicating that we can explore it, but it may have an impact on staffing, and so it would be considered an option, not the current you know, design. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Marcia. It's something that hasn't been approved, I guess, if you want to, you know, at this stage. I mean, we're just approving concepts, but yeah. So then the other thing was where the rec area is. Danielle, can you kind of show that?
Yeah,
Okay, so that was right there, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're wondering how to get from the annex, if that was juvenile, to get over to the rec?
So is that inside the secure perimeter? I mean, it is, but
And if I can jump in,
Yeah.
Ken, so
Okay.
really what the idea was, Scott, discussing with the Minnesota Department of Corrections, was to basically create 2 security perimeters in that facility. One right now being by the SV, to just by the public lobby to the right, near the jail administration. Obviously, that'd be a secured perimeter, and all that hallway would be inside the secured perimeter of the adult detention center. And creating now, as you have that hand going to the left, somewhere right around there, having another interior secured perimeter where you could actually literally shut the jail off from the adults and allow the juveniles to come up towards that recreation space. Obviously, not having to create and pay for another recreation space anywhere else.
right. And also, wouldn't they be able to take advantage of the program space then too?
Oh, yeah, yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yep, thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, both of them, the recreation and the program space.
Yes,
So for medical, mental health, social,
all of it.
that stuff, and they wouldn't be interacting with the jail population because they would be secured in the jail portion at that point.
Yeah, they'd be absolutely, yep, disconnected. Yep.
Yeah. So I'll let you explore that too, Steve, with the architect. But that's one of those things that if you do it, it helps if you're going to do something with juveniles, but it doesn't necessarily hurt if you decide not to. So, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions before we conclude? All right. Sounds like not. I think we can adjourn.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, if I haven't said it to
Yep.
you.
Yep. Happy New Year. Oops.